Hello, beautiful people. I'm Mariquita Solis, and I'm here today with Mark Winstein. I'm so excited to start this live stream off with such an amazing gentleman full of wisdom. He's been really a great activist for the environment, for our planet. So, thank you for joining us, Mark. I want you to really let us know about your wisdom and tell us about you and your company, Vegan Launch.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Mariquita. Vegan Launch is building a finance-oriented business that can compete with the big Wall Street banks, but in a very different way. And I have experience in competing for the mind space of our culture from spending 10 years in Washington, D.C. as a co-founder of a national environmental group. And at least for 10 years, we helped transform the direction of the U.S. Forest Service, which when I arrived in Washington, D.C., was logging our public lands, the biggest terrestrial pool of biodiversity in North America. They were destroying that biodiversity at a rate unprecedented. And by the end of the decade, with our work and the work of really hundreds of other environmental groups and scientists and famous people, business people together, we helped bring that volume down 80% to the lowest level since the 1940s. And I'm not going to go into explain how to get so high and what exactly we did, but being part of a movement that worked together to transform something so large was really quite a surprise in a way. I mean, people didn't believe we could do it. I did always from the beginning. You have to have faith or else you don't even start.
Right.
So that was so informative.
That's amazing. Yes. And that you were able to connect with people at a young age. I mean, where it's not like this is something that just recently happened in your life, that you've really grown in awareness to how to help the planet and then launch this wonderful business to help vegans. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more. And the title of this is Interacting with Non-Vegans as a Healing Opportunity. And I know a lot of people are struggling with that. So thanks for watching, everybody. I should have said, please let us know you're here, comment, and we're here to take your questions. Mark has a lot of wisdom, so we're going to get that wisdom out here from him. And I know, like I said before, there's a lot of challenges when it comes to dealing with non-vegans. And I know that in your experience, your life experience, Mark, how was it when you first became vegan, and what made you become vegan?
Well, I went vegan. It kind of happened more or less by accident. I had a number of health problems, especially my digestion it had been bad my whole life, but by 2001, it had gotten like really bad. I had really bad acid reflux, and I started looking for answers, and the answers came relatively slowly. And bit by bit, I was healing, but it was pretty sketchy. And often I was afraid to go to bed at night because I didn't know if I'd be waking up gagging or not. That's how bad it had gotten. And then in 2016, I was just in a really low energy space, just surviving. And I had enough energy to watch YouTube and look for answers. And there are a lot of lovely people on YouTube that have a lot of interesting answers to things. And one guy was saying, I was eating a mostly plant-based diet, but I didn't really have an idea of the power. A friend was basically trying to have me eat a raw diet, but she hadn't really explained just how damaging, by that point I had been vegetarian for a while, but that's nowhere for healing. And I was still eating dairy products and eggs and still suffering, and I didn't know why. So this guy started explaining, how to change your energy level with a vegan diet. And then, then I saw the video of the baby chicks going down the macerator. So this guy, he taught the science and connected his audience with all of the vegan doctors and what they had to say. And then when I saw that, that was September 1st, 2016, I just said, I can't believe that I've been a part of this, because like most Americans, I'd been indoctrinated into this strange culture of high animal, high protein consumption. And literally within a week after that vow, I said, I don't care what happens to me, I'm not going to take part in this industry again.
Wow.
And even the vow itself is very therapeutic. People don't necessarily understand the power of commitment, but that was really the seed. And then within the next week, eating the way this guy said, very simple, just increasing the balance of carbohydrates, just like Dr. McDougall, all of the doctors. And that gave, suddenly my energy popped up. I started rock climbing with my sons. Everything started falling into place bit by bit. And it's been a while, it's been a long journey. I don't want to say I was healed overnight, but right now my digestion is better than I can remember in my entire life. And, it's not like I'm just going to go out and eat a vegan pizza necessarily. I'm a little careful, but it's so great to not have that on a list of worries.
Yeah, that you're doing the best for your body. I love that. And so you said it kind of took a week from the first time that gentleman spoke to you?
No, I listened to his videos for like 6 months before he gave the science and the information, but it wasn't until I saw the chicks going down the macerator that I said, okay, this is the day, September 1st, 2016. And I said, this is the line, I'm done, that's it. You see what I'm saying? So that's the thing, is that we can know about health, we can learn about a lot of information, but really veganism, and everybody I know, it's really it's a more profound shift, the ones that stick with it. Because if you're just trying to do it for your health, you can rationalize a McDonald's here and there. There's a lot you can rationalize if you're just doing it for yourself. But if you're doing it for the world and for the animals and their rights, the commitment is more profound. And that's what really allows people to, like, living in that space of commitment has just been the most beautiful experience. Because to be a vegan, you got to be committed, because there's a lot of people that are going to try to change your mind back.
Right. You're right. That's very true. And what about, so in working with environmentalists, were there a lot of vegans in that area, or
there were a few, but this was the 90s. And so back then, veganism was mostly focused on ending animal testing in laboratories and other kind of sort of obvious abuse. And people, like we had a vegan on staff at our organization, but what she said didn't really hit home with me. And we were trying to save habitat, like we're just trying to save the whole forest. And oddly, some of our biggest allies, we weren't hunters, or we didn't do that kind of stuff. We were kind of urban environmentalists, you could say, tree huggers. But we had very powerful and effective relationships with hunting groups who had the common interest in protecting habitat. And this lovely person, her name was Shane, if you ever, I missed the boat, I'm sorry. But she had brought up, well, why don't we add something in the bill about saving chickens, which really don't live in the national forest that way, turkeys. But it's hard. The more you try to load down things in Washington, the less chance you get anything done. And I just couldn't see how we were going to accommodate chicken rights with saving the forest at that time. Now I get it. Now I was wrong, but I didn't know why I was wrong. And with all due respect, neither did she understand what it would have taken to really create a unification between vegans and environmentalists. And so as an environmentalist who missed the boat, and I regret that, because look at all the suffering I've had in my life with all my body pains and things. But now, understanding that animal products, I look at animal products as a form of toxin. I would never want to put that in my body, where before I thought that they might be vital nutrients. That's a huge shift. And that frees up people to look more effectively at the relationship between how we treat animals and the whole rest of the economy. So we've identified $15 trillion of vegan investment opportunities by viewing it from the vegan perspective, as opposed to, wouldn't it be nice if we ate more plants, which it would be nice, but there's a very powerful, not only meaning, but a very powerful financial opportunity in advocating for animal rights. And most people think, well, we need to tone that down. That's fine. Whatever they're comfortable with, they're pushing in the right direction. I'm not going to yell at other people on the same basic moving in the same direction, but Vegan Launch is here to lead in something that I have understood early on, demonstrated in the 90s. What did I demonstrate? That strong values create strong economies. And oddly, during the 90s, after I left that, I could see that there was a whole economy that had been growing from the work that we did and the work of other friends of ours in other nonprofits. And the thing that we need to understand is movements create markets. So the stronger the movement, the bigger the market, actually. So the movement, because we live in a values-based economy, the West especially, but most of the world, except for the poorest, maybe 2 billion people, live in an economy that's highly structured by values. What color clothes are you going to wear? You know, what style car? Everything is a style. And that creates very rapid opportunities for change. And now veganism to me is not a trend or a style, it's a paradigm. It's trending because it's a very reliable paradigm, especially for human health. Once we get over the human health issue, then we can address, you know, as people realize that their health is going to be better, it's what's in it for them, right? We've got to give them. But the goal of each charity literally does create an economy. So if we look at all the vegan charities and all the other charitable work in the world, we have to look and see if they were successful and the world looked like what they wanted, what would the economy be like? And then what kind of companies and businesses would exist in that economy, and how would the economy be designed? So Vegan Launch, we're looking out at a vegan world. What companies would exist in that success? And we are designing rapid, streamlined financing approaches that really have the potential to eclipse anything that's being done right now in the impact economy. So we're modeling a whole new way of financing high impact projects that when you get to scale, now we can talk about saving the oceans, right? Half the trash in the oceans is fishing nets. How are we going to save the oceans if we're still eating fish? So we have two jobs. We need to educate the world about the relationship of eating fish to the health of the oceans and also to their own health, because it's not healthy in terms of, you know, just fish are not a human food, maybe a survival food for some people who've eked out an existence. And they're also full of toxins. Why would you put mercury and all cadmium and all kinds of garbage in your body? So that education isn't getting out because we don't have a large enough enterprise to educate at that scale. A Vegan Launch, by design, is designed to be large enough to create that kind of mass education via the sale of public investment products that each educate the world about something.
Well, that's a tremendous impact that you've got, you know, that's being created. And I'm super happy. And I love the story that you're saying that about your friend, that she was kind of like, that was like a seed she was planting, and still, you know, I mean, when we're talking about change, that people sometimes don't, you know, they change at their own pace, like you did. You know, looking back at it now, you could see really a greater impact that was there. But it was in that time, you know, it took the time of the journey to get it, you know, and to click with it all, you know. So, and that's what's really important to know, because that's what we're talking about here, kind of about having compassion to other people, because they're on a journey too. So,
Well, right. And in fact, if you really look back, and this is really the theme of our discussion today, when you look back, she didn't have the skill to communicate. I could see it in her heart, but it just didn't make any sense. So she didn't have the skill to communicate effectively with me. I would have been on board that day if I had known what I know now. I'm like, that was what, 2016? That was almost 25 years ago that she was there and I didn't do it. You know what I'm saying? What did I miss that way? I missed a lot. So, so the thing is here's the thing, if we look at how movements grow, what usually happens is, children are very perceptive, and then we learn something, and then now we're still young, and we realize that the adults have been totally out to lunch. They just totally neglected the world that we're supposed to grow up into. It's like, but a child doesn't have a whole lot of latitude, so we get what I call a parent-child dynamic. A child, like a baby, has one real power: to stop the action, scream. And if we look at the way most movements work, that's pretty much what they're doing. They're trying to yell in various ways to get the attention of the big people and let the parents tell the parents they're doing something wrong and they need to change. Now, that works some, it works a lot, but it doesn't work enough. If we look at the scale of the degradation of the environment and the growth of the animal food industry, right? So we have to look at other approaches. Now, if we look back, one of the, even though I was an environmentalist, I was looking at how do we get to scale. And back then I read an article in the Wall Street Journal about Intel, which is the chip maker. Well, back in the 90s, no one knew what a chip was. So they spent $100 million just to teach America. America was about 300 million even back then. So $100 million just to educate America on what's a chip and why they should look for their little label. Intel inside was their label. So that gives you a sense of what it costs. Now, in that same era, the budget of the Sierra Club was only $50 million. In fact, the budget of PETA 2020 was also only $50 million. So we're way out. That's just what Intel spent just for teaching. That wasn't their whole business revenue or even all of their marketing. So this is the thing, we've been outclassed because of the not looking at this as an economic pursuit, but as a battle between the adult and the child. And so the thing is, what's really great, when I became a professional environmentalist, I suddenly had the right to yell at anybody, blame everybody. It was very therapeutic. It was very refreshing to point my finger at everybody else and blame them. Now, I was only 30 years old when we started this organization, but by the time the 10 years was over, I'd had many epiphanies. And I realized that you're not going to talk to people. You're not going to educate people if you're putting them on the defensive at all times. If you're attacking them, then they're going to fight. If you approach them with love, it's not easy, but once you get the knack, it's really quite more effective. And I had one of our biggest enemies, so-called enemies, when I finally got up the notion and the courage to speak to him in a loving way, he liked what I said. He was literally willing to help raise money. I couldn't bring no environmentalist trusted that relationship, but I knew he was serious. He ended up becoming the chief of the U.S. Forest Service, and I even met with him then. As the chief of the Forest Service, he was willing to pull out stops to fund my idea, but I couldn't find any environmentalists who were willing to back it. They all thought it was some kind of a trap. It was my idea. I didn't change. I didn't change stripes. But this really illustrates the power of love and peace as an operating system. And so those were my early experiments. And for the past really 20 years now, I've been cultivating these approaches and putting them in place in this notion of large scale finance, so that because vegans have trillions of dollars. I'll take a breath and let you ask a question before I go to another iteration.
Well, I'm going to read comments, and I'm thankful that we've got people watching. And make sure you give StreamYard your permission to use your name. But I'm looking at my phone here to see Heidi's watching, Trisha, hi, Polly, and Dina. She's saying, this is so good. Thank you, Mark and Mariquita. And let's see, Patty, Amanda. Nancy said, I knew, but 10 Thanksgivings ago, I looked at that dead body on my table, and right then something clicked. So I understand, knowing but not moving on.
It's so disgusting. It's unbelievable that we've been doing this. It's so gross.
Well, that's the thing, the programming, as children, and, we're being brainwashed. We have to eat meat. We have to eat meat, because if we're not, we're going to be white as ghosts. We're not going to have any energy. And that's just the opposite. Right before here, I was out leading a hike and, having to slow down. I'm 54, and I was having to slow down for all the rest of the people. And I thought, wow, I'm not even tired, and I'm just full of life because of what I'm eating.
Yeah.
And it really makes a difference. And I love your story. So so that inspiration to change was the videos that you watched, and then that little chicken, the male chick, I don't know what the proper term is, but
the masticator, the giant garbage disposal. Unbelievable. Yeah. I can't believe anything could be so cruel.
You're right. And people don't know about that. And sometimes when we like if we show something that's very graphic, people don't want to see it. Because that's a response, a natural response. Like, I don't want to know. I just don't want to know, because they're so programmed in these ways of eating, because it's a cultural, system here. It's not just, this and going to the store and buying, but you're thinking about Thanksgiving dinner with your family. What are they going to say to you? What are my friends going to say? Right. And then also meat is very addictive. So that's a whole other thing.
Does she have a question or just a comment?
Well, that was a comment, y'all. Let's get some questions if you have any. That one question was about capitalism. How does capitalism go with activism?
Right. Well, remember, we have to understand that movements create markets. So I was in the forest protection movement, and I had told our early funders that we should set up an enterprise to catch the ecosystem restoration contracts that would come from our work, because we're going to convert the Forest Service into the world's largest ecology organization. That was our intent. And that actually happened, because the logging program was a couple $2 billion a year. So by the time that decade was over, I was starting to meet all kinds of people that were making money from our work to try to change the Forest Service and other people's work. There's a whole enterprise called the Ecological Restoration Society of America. During that era, I became friends with the chairman of the board, and he had started as a landscaper in Maryland. And one day he saw contracts for restoring wetlands. And I can't say that I was the one that made that specific contract happen, but I said, did you ever wonder how it is that the government decided to start allocating money for this stuff? He said, no, I just did the contracts. And he became the chair. Like, he was the chairman of the board of the whole, I went to their conference in Vancouver. It was huge. Billions of dollars moving in the restoration industry now. Nobody knows about it because it's not financed publicly. But I said, did you ever think of how this happened? He said, no, I have no idea. I said, because people like me, we try to get the government to change their mind and put the money somewhere else. So, yes. But so who's the best organizers? The animal foods industry, the meat industry spends $120 million a year on government relations. They also have marketing, so they help build, as people on YouTube, like the carnist movement, right? They're the carnist movement, and so they try to get better government. So the movement has created a market for carne, for flesh. That movement has created the market, and then they invest in improving that market. But the thing is, it's just a story that we all know is really false. Now, why is it that we as vegans wouldn't want to do the same thing, and it turns out there's quite a lot of people that would like to do the same thing, get our finances organized. We have the economy, we can see all over, there's vegan brands. And I'm going to tell you something before the end of one of the companies we're working with, which all of your people will love. So there's all kinds of strategies to veganize the economy. One of our companies that we're working with is called Vegan Wines. And it's a very non-confrontational organizing strategy, though, because suddenly people are going, well, I didn't know wine. First of all, I didn't know wines weren't vegan. And what is a vegan wine? So now suddenly, rather than, yelling at people in Bonanza Steakhouse, now people are asking questions. It's like, well, what's the difference between a vegan wine and a normal wine? And now we have an educational moment coming on a common interest, in their case, about fine wine and all the various opportunities. Now, the wine industry is a $416 billion annual industry. And if we add spirits, it's going to be probably double that, and beer and whatnot. So Francis Gonzalez, the founder of Vegan Wines, is an expert in transforming the wine industry. She needs more capital. We've helped her. With our help, she's learned how to raise capital. She had failed over and over again. And this is the kind of thing I love doing, is taking somebody who's a natural leader and giving her the tools. And you can see, if transforming that huge industry, the potential for revenue, right? We all need money to live and eat. If you're vegan, unless you're living on some solely self-sustained farm somewhere, we're in the economy. And I'm all interested in building the economy, make sure that vegans have vegan jobs. And they're going to happen from people like Francis and everybody in the Vegan Launch community, the founders, the investors, and the organizers. They're all working together for this goal that vegans lead the economy. That we're not taking orders from the meat industry or anybody else that's at the top, or Goldman Sachs or any other big finance company deciding for us how the world is going to be. We are deciding as a financial organizing community, and we're focused, instead of charity as our operating platform, we're operating on finance, because finance is always the next stage after the normal organizing. It moves into the regular economy. So here we are, veganism's in the mainstream economy, but still, the potential is so great. And all of us for the rest of our lives could be working on solving the most interesting challenges and just cleaning up all the pollution, saving the oceans, saving forests, saving people's health, and of course, saving the animals, right? All at the same time, which is so much fun to work this way. But we need money to do the work, and that's my job. In 2001, I said, I'm dropping out of the movement because I got to learn how finance works. That's the obvious next step for the environmental movement. I couldn't really get enough traction. That's a long story. But now, when I went vegan, and the laws in the United States had changed around finance in 2016 as well, and about a year later, suddenly it's like, bing, I can do this. And then in 2018, I said, I am doing this. I've literally dropped everything else that was going on in my life to do this. And I'm glad I did. I mean, it's, sometimes I could have wished I had gotten Bitcoin or something, but this will be better than Bitcoin long-term, because Bitcoin is just a currency, and we use whatever currency society wants to use.
Right. Well, wow. We're getting a lot of comments, Mark. Can you see the comments?
Oh, I guess I'm in the wrong there. Look at this.
Yes. So someone says, talk to us about investing. Let's create a vegan bank. Can you see where that comment is?
Right. I see it. So Vegan Launch we're essentially, so when we think of a bank, we think of the banks that are on the, Bank of America, the place where we deposit our funds. But we're essentially a citizen-led, I don't want to say it exactly, because these are terms of legal meaning. And the US government constricts the words that I can say about money and finance. There are laws that govern my speech. I don't have free speech to say whatever I want, but I have a lot of free speech. But basically, if we look at the work of the investment bankers on Wall Street, people come to them, they have piles of money. and other people come and they need piles of money, and they put the two together. Now, to some extent, that kind of work is being done, whether it's Wells Fargo or Chase. They all have investment banking divisions. So Vegan Launch is doing that. But if we look at those companies, they're dealing with large wealth pools like the endowments and pension funds, and then they invest that in private financial strategies that the public will never know about. So it's no wonder there's a lot of shenanigans that go on, because the only thing that's public about Goldman Sachs is you can buy ownership in the management company. But except unless you're in the 1%, or you run a pension, or you run the Harvard endowment, you're not going to know much about any of the investment products, because all their investment products are private. So Vegan Launch is committed to every investment product being publicly financed. Wealthy people can invest. I'm not against, to be honest, I'm not against anybody. The 1% is part of everybody. But through my organizing experience, I've seen the best way to get the 1% to move is for everybody else to move first, because the 1% are very risk averse, and they don't really know. They're into protecting their wealth. They don't really know how to change culture. And in a lot of ways, they're not going to do any kind of change that would affect the status quo that they are living in. So Vegan Launch, we're raising money now on a platform called WeFunder. If you go to our website, veganlaunch.com, you can click the blue banner at the top. And there you'll learn about the way we're using finance to solve the world's largest scale problems. And given my experience as a very effective social organizer in the 90s, we're taking those same principles, and because this is public, you can share it, you can organize financially, and you don't have to be wealthy to make a difference. You can invest $100. We have postcards that people are putting out in restaurants, in vegan restaurants and vegan grocery stores, and we're dropping them in the boxes of vegan mail order companies. To help people get together, we need to organize financially, I say, if we want to really make a difference, and be responsible. But right now, Goldman Sachs and BlackRock, those guys are the parents in our culture. They're taking responsibility, whether you like it or not, what they're doing. They're in charge. And in the end, right, if we want to have a say like them about how the world's going to look, we have to get more and more adept at handling larger and larger amounts of capital. Because look, it's scary. It's like if we raise $1 billion, that's somebody's life savings, that's their kid's college fund, that's their retirement fund. Not everybody wants to be responsible for that. It's like, you know what? I'd rather not do that, because that's like, what if it blows up and all these people are going to be pretty unhappy? And me, So it takes some courage. It takes a little training to get used to handling that much energy, right? It's one thing to put a battery in your flashlight. It's another thing to work at one of those electrical transfer stations where those big warning signs, right? You got to get used to the energy and get educated. How do you safely handle? Because money is really representative of human energy. How do you handle it? And we're educating people on all these different aspects of financial leadership in our community. And if you just want to sit back and invest, you can do that right on the WeFunder, the public offer, our first Vegan Launch's own first public offer.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot of information. You see all, and I mean, people are really responding. I love it. I love this great conversations. Thank you all.
Here's a good one.
Okay.
Well, Facebook user, wine is alcohol. I don't drink it personally, but I'm not here to tell people. They'll have to come to that conclusion on their own. I mean, whether to drink alcohol or not doesn't necessarily have to be fundamentally a vegan issue. And there are vegans that like wine. So why should the animals die just because they're going to drink alcohol? I wouldn't drink it myself. But okay, here's a person. I want to raise money to start a food truck. What's the best way to raise money for that? Well, it's a long subject, but basically you have to look and see the market. Like when you're raising money, what you're really doing is selling an investment product, whether you're selling it to the bank or whether you're selling it to the people in your community. And we go through all of these steps in the vegan launch community where I train people. Many people come to me with these exact questions. So the first thing to do, if I was starting a food truck, I would get a free account like a MailChimp and just start talking to people about your idea and ask them if they'd like to be on a newsletter. Because to succeed in almost any of these things, you need a good community of people that are going to be willing to write checks. Like GoFundMe, it's not like you put a thing up on GoFundMe and suddenly the money shows up. They're just a platform. You've got to bring the customers. If you don't have your own fundraising community, it's a lot harder. So the very first thing is set up a MailChimp account, start talking to people, and then send them a monthly newsletter about how it's going and keep them in the conversation about having the food truck. And you'll be surprised, because one thing people don't know, at least 10 out of 100, and probably these days 20 out of 100 adults just walking down the street in most any city in the US is a millionaire. We don't know that. We don't realize, and that includes vegans too. Vegans are not all, poor people. There's plenty of wealthy vegans, because veganism has nothing to do with wealth. It has something to do with the animals. And it's not a left thing. It's not a right thing. There's plenty of, political vegans across the spectrum, across the age, and across the wealth spectrum. So it's about cultivating your conversation about why should they buy your investment product. That helps you get ready to receive. Why should they invest in you? And you get good at that conversation, and you're building that group of support around that conversation. And when it's time to ask, people want that. People really want they want more vegan food trucks. So it's not like you're pushing uphill. People want more and more of that. I mean, our goal is to have a single fund for the food service industry, because that's a 2.5 trillion annual industry. Like, I feel for you. Raising money hand to hand is hard. I've done it my whole life. And that's why I'm doing it at scale, so that people like you can just get a check early on without having the whole hassle. The hassle is not good for the animals. That's slowing down. There's 2,000 other vegans raising money right now, all redundantly, all repeating the same effort. It's taken me 20 years to master the financial field of this way. 20 years times 2,000 is 40,000 years. That's 40,000 years of wasted effort if we can just organize and make sure everyone gets the money. So in community, much more is possible than alone. Build your own community or join the vegan launch community, but you still have to keep building your community while we boot up bigger. But we've helped vegans raise over $500,000 so far in a number of different ways. So people who follow my instructions, if they follow my instructions, they will get the money. They may not get it from me personally yet. We're not writing our own checks yet. That to me is our next threshold. But through the training and through the community and the notions that we give people, you look around, there's money all over the place that wants to do what you're wanting. You just don't know yet how to connect. But it's not the platform. It's not GoFundMe. I'd stay away from loans if you could avoid it, but that's getting too granular. All right.
What about this one? I own an InHome. Do you see that one?
Child care business.
Yeah.
All the families are non-vegan, but their children are eating vegan menu all day. Well, I think that's a really good concept. Again, it's almost like the same thing. The thing is, all businesses have the same thing. So we're reading about the vegan childcare program and why that could be so valuable. So the very same thing, set up a free MailChimp email system and start talking with people and start learning about how people might react. Once you get a sense, you might see just how strong that idea is, or how your communication affects how people think of it. So, again, this is the kind of thing we train people just day in, day out inside of the vegan launch community. We charge $100 a month for this training, and it's nowhere near what it's worth. But the thing is, because we do it in community, we don't need to try to make money from vegan founders. It's really the communities for training and organizing. And then the WeFunder page is for raising capital for us. And some of our companies are raising money on WeFunder, but and WeFunder is a very useful tool. I mean, I love the guys. We have a partnership with them. So let's I have all kinds of videos on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/veganlaunch. Start watching some of those videos. Many of these questions are answered there. And if you raise a question, I'll make a video about that as well.
Yeah, you're going to put all your information down afterwards so everybody can get a hold of you, Mark, because it looks like there's a lot of interest in Vegan Launch. And so let's go back to a little bit about the communication with non-vegans. I mean, and sorry, I have a little dog here. Anyway, so were you always effective at communicating with non-vegans?
To be honest, I don't do that much of that because you see, I'm not. I mean, I probably could do a good job, but that's not. And I do. A lot of people come to me with questions about it, and I think here's how I'm going to give you guys the right way to go about it.
Okay.
And I'll tell you my approach. See, my approach is this. The people who care about their health and the environment, they have $30 trillion in the public stock market. This is all on our WeFunder page. And that's 34 million people. And vegans are about 4 million people, and they've got about $3 trillion in public stock. So there's no money shortage. It's just all invested in stuff that's not vegan, except maybe Oatly and, maybe Beyond Meat. And, it's because these are old companies, for the most part. Wall Street are companies that were founded Ford was founded over 100 years ago. So it's a snapshot of the past. Vegan Launch is that we work with early stage companies. You've got to be big to trade on Wall Street. We work on the companies that will be on Wall Street in the future. So what was I saying? So what do I do? So I raise money from vegans. I just have to talk to vegan investors. I raise money from vegans and people who are interested. Like we're not saying you have to be vegan to invest, but that's our sweet spot. I get the luxury of selling to vegans. Most other companies can't make it if vegans are their only market. Then we take that money and we invest in companies who are designed to spread veganism, to build the movement through their economy. So all of our companies we work with are led by vegans, and they all have the same drive to convert more people. So through the vegans funding Vegan Launch and our ability to raise more and more capital and then effectively put in the hands of ideally thousands of vegan business founders around the world, they get to go and market, and then their marketing builds the vegan market. And now we've got this nice positive flywheel snowball effect. And they're out doing the proselytizing. I'm not a proselytizer so much in that way. Maybe I'll come. Now, the thing I want you all to be really excited by is we have a new member in our community. I've been working. Peter Goldstein is the founder. It's a company called WeDidIt.health. Now, WeDidIt.health is a whole community, and the point of that community, it's very large actually, is to help teach people how to be effective at communicating about veganism with their friends and family and coworkers and wherever. And they're doing that with, really with communication training, and also they're putting together the best information possible. So a library of information so that you get communication style and methodology as well as the facts. And so all I can say to people is that when you drop your hatred of the other person, then you see where the opportunities are. Now that you can learn from a lot of places. And I'm just saying it, and I'm not saying that's easy, but it is definitely possible because I've done it. And if you look at Gandhi, one thing that I've really taken away from Gandhi, he said, "I recognize no person on the face of the earth as my enemy." And when I first read that in 1996, I thought, he's clowning. That's baloney. Of course, this is just some political strategy. You can't really believe that. These people are terrible. It's a trick. It's a scam. And then, fortunately, some friends of mine got me involved in some training where we pragmatically looked, and I began to see, wow, when I change my perspective, I really see something. So what happened? George Bush got elected president in 2000. And I was an environmentalist, so of course I was against that. But then within a day, I got a letter from the Sierra Club saying, our worst nightmare, this is terrible, and you need to send us money so we can fight with George Bush. And I looked at that and I thought, okay, if he's not my enemy, if I don't look at President Bush as my enemy, what would I do? Because it's not like I agree with what he's doing. Just because you're not viewing them with hatred doesn't mean you have to agree with what they're doing. But I thought, you know what? How did he get elected? Well, obviously, millions and millions of Americans agree with him on environmental policy. Why? Because they haven't been educated. How do we get to mass education? That's why I do what I do. I started this path because the charities can't get to scale with education. The corporations can. The smallest Fortune 500 company is $5 billion a year in revenue. The biggest is $500 billion a year in revenue. And again, PETA 2020 was only 50 million. We're in total revenue. There's no way they can educate at scale that's necessary to transform the culture so the guy like President Bush will never get elected again. You don't have to hate President Bush. We have to look at take responsibility. Where does the problem really lie? The problem lies in ineffective communication at scale, or not, what I'm saying, not having effective communication at scale. That is the problem that Vegan Launch is solving. And because of the way finance and movements work, it's a financial flywheel as well. So it can be self-sustaining mass education. So that's my master thesis for you. But it came from looking at President Bush not as an enemy. It's like, okay, if I don't want to complain about him, how do I take responsibility? Do I want to take that responsibility? I decided I did. Somebody else might say, you know what? He's a bad guy. I'm not willing to do anything. I can love him. He's just a human being like the rest of us. I'm going to focus on something else, and God help us. That's, there's so many ways, but in the end, the loving point of view is so much more powerful than the victim and hatred point of view. All the power is in being the cause of your world and being loving. Those two things are the secret of every teaching ever, by any religion ever, any spiritual path ever. Follow that and see what happens, and then put it in action. Veganism it's just a beautiful framework for that. Okay.
Yeah, you're right. I love what you're saying. I mean, you don't want to cut the bridge when you see someone, if there are no enemies like Gandhi, right? Gandhi was saying, then, I mean, how much more can you, impact this world if it's not us against them, that mentality. And I love Peter that you mentioned from We Did It, Peter Goldstein from We Did It Health. I've been working with him too about communication. We've got to be able to communicate. And the meat eaters in that industry, they're great communicators. They're great marketers, right? So we've got to.
They're awesome, aren't they? I mean, they really get people to agree with them.
Right. They know what they're doing. So we've got to up our communication skills and our marketing skills. So somehow we've got to look and see what's not working and what's working. We're stuck on what's not working. Yeah, it's not working if we're doing this. Well, why not? Now I'm just going to get mad and hate them. Instead of listening, what are they listening to? What actually does work? Let's take a step back and take a breath and not go launch an attack on them. Like you and George Bush, but to see.
Well, that wasn't me. I wasn't going to be part of the attack, but I noticed that the environmental movement.
Right.
I had graduated from attack-based politics, and the movement hadn't really come my way just yet. But
right. Yeah. No. You were the guy that wasn't going to attack. Your thinking had changed, that up, like people are saying, consciousness, right? You had upped that level of consciousness to say no attack, but how do we work together? How can you communicate to make a difference? Take the ego out of it, right? It's not about me, but I'm here for the environment. So I'm not going to let my ego get in the way of this stuff, to communicate better for the environment.
Yeah, the thing is, listening is the secret. Listening is much more powerful than telling. And I'm a big talker, so that's been a really hard lesson for me to get.
Definitely listening. There's a lot of other comments here, and I'm not sure. Let me see who's. I have to look at my phone because Patty is saying, about Angela Crawford, Dr. Angela Crawford's ebook on how to better communicate. And wow, I love her. I just recently met her a month ago, and it turns out that we were in the same training. And I met her through Peter Goldstein. So I mean, what she's saying is what I'm saying and what you're saying. that we've got to communicate on a different level, right? Of listening. These are so powerful, these ears right here. And we're not using them. Instead, we're just like, this is what I want to say. I'm going to plow through it. And if you don't hear me, then I'm going to launch a bomb. And what has that gotten me? Nothing. I haven't helped the animals at all. I've just caused myself anxiety and anger. So knowing there's no agenda, like you were saying with your sons, don't your sons, are they vegan?
Yeah, I mean, my younger son is definitely, the older one, I think he's mostly plant-based. Let's just say that. I don't know. I don't talk to them about their diet or their beliefs. And because this is a story, I don't know if you want me to tell this whole story given the time we have remaining, but I will. And so when I went vegan and my sons were still eating, and I was divorced by that point, and I moved to be near them, but the whole family thing had shifted. And so the only time I really saw them was if I had them over to my place to eat, or if I took them out to eat. And if I took them out to eat and they would order eggs, I'm watching this, I'm just feeling sick. It's like we're talking about 40 or 50 years of digestive problems from eating the Western diet and watching them consume that same stuff. But I didn't want to start preaching because preaching is annoying. But so one day though, I had an epiphany because I realized I needed to take my own stand. And it was scary, but I had this realization. It's like, I'm committed to this. And I just want them to understand the commitment rather than the information. And so I told them, I sat them down, and they were still in high school. Now one's in Budapest studying math, and the other's a sophomore in college. I said, guys, I got to tell you something. Long time ago, all the science showed that smoking caused cancer. It was clear as day. And the cigarette industry spent a huge amount of time and money trying to suppress, distract, and confuse people about this one truth. And somehow, 20 years later or so, with so many people dying, and finally, at least now the whole culture understands that cigarettes cause cancer. You want to smoke cigarettes? That's on you, but at least you know. I said the same thing is going on in the food industry, and people like Dr. Neil Bernard, they're leading lawsuits. Why are we serving, carcinogens to our kids at school lunch programs? And so I said, 10 years from now, the whole world will understand that animal products are poison, toxins, disease causing. And I don't want to lecture you about this stuff. I just want to let you know that I would no more buy you or serve you an animal product than I would buy you a carton of cigarettes. And you're free to eat whatever you want. And when you're away from me, you're going to do whatever you want, right? But when you're with me, I don't want to watch you put that stuff in your mouth. And that's how I feel about it. And I want to hang out with you. And I love you. And that's why I'm telling you this now, so you don't have to wait 10 or 20 years to find out the facts, because I'm on top of the facts. And I was, I went into that with this commitment, knowing that could risk that maybe they would say, Dad, you're an idiot. F you. And we're done. But I was willing to take that risk for my commitment, and the commitment, it just worked. And I don't lecture them about this stuff much. Every once in a while, I make a little point. But I'm saying it's like, it's not really, when they're with me, we're not talking about vegan diets, veganism, or anything. They just are. And the younger one, I think the older one would have been, but social disapproval, that social pressure, that is the hardest part of being vegan, is that, that's why we need to build so many vegan restaurants to help normalize this and help people understand the paradigm, and vegan health clinics. So, the work of I Did It Health is so valuable because that's helping foster the market for vegan health clinics, and Vegan Launch is working on the financing to help finance any doctor that wants to go and have a plant-based clinic, because most doctors don't know anything about business, right? They're going to need our help to disengage from this whole Western medical. I mean, they're still Western medical people, so they have the trust, but they need to stop practicing. It doesn't work. And Dr. Dean Ornish has said that chronic illness is 86% of the medical care industry. Well, the global medical care industry is 8.5 trillion a year. 86% of that is 7.5 trillion a year. Like, look, you can't make forward-looking statements, but as a business person, you would want to get into this field. That's almost as big as the car industry, and much easier. It's a lot easier to start a vegan health clinic than it is to start Tesla, making electric vehicles. You already have the MD. You just need an office and some marketing, and you got to be able to pay your bills while the thing boots up. But like right here, I live in Columbus, Ohio. One clinic here could market easily to 12 million people. And there's 440 million people in the world who have type 2 diabetes. Most of them have no idea that that's a relatively easily reversible, reliably reversible disease. Let me say that, it's reliably reversible with diet and lifestyle. So imagine we've got one clinic in Columbus marketing to the whole state, which is all within a day's drive. And now we're educating the whole public about just this one fact, just like Intel educated the whole public about their one fact about what's a chip. So this is why a network of vegan health clinics properly funded for appropriate marketing can mass educate on a point that's going to get people on that track toward waking up that veganism is a paradigm and eating animals is stupid. It's wrong. Not wrong. I mean, sure, it's wrong morally, but it's also wrong for every other reason. And the more of those little seeds that drop, the more we've got it.
Yeah. And someone's saying, thank you so much. And Mark, you're going to have to go back and look at these comments because we're running out of time, but let me ask you.
I think we covered it pretty well.
I know you're doing a great job, and thank you everyone for watching, but how did you inspire, just going to ask you this one question. How did you inspire someone else to change their lifestyle? I guess with your sons, you're doing that by being the example.
Right. So commitment, if you're vegan now, you know what it's like to live from the point of view of commitment, because most people are trying to make sense. It's like, well, is it going to hurt me? Like when I made that commitment, I said, you know what, this might kill me, but I'm not going to kill another animal. If I die doing this, I'm okay with that. That's a commitment. And I made the same commitment to Vegan Launch. And that's helped me a lot, because there's a lot of times I wanted to quit. And then just suddenly it's like that commitment just popped right back up. So you know how to commit. And then the question is, what do you want to commit to? But having the ability to commit is, not everyone has that knack. And so what I love is all the vegan founders and the vegan investors, they're all committed. And then the question is, how do we express that commitment more and more effectively? Like there's a lot of just practical, what's the right order? What's the best way to do things? Not everything is, I appreciate everyone talking about consciousness. That's important, but there's a lot of practical steps that if you get them wrong, it's a mess. So basically one of the best things I help people do is just avoid hundreds of mistakes on the path toward their goal. I love doing that. That's why I do this. I just love helping people fulfill their dream vision, and whatever that is. I figure if we're all pursuing our dream, it's going to be great. And I've got a lot of tools and approaches and things to make that easier, right? I didn't have a mentor. It's very hard to find a mentor to how do you, it's one thing to just kind of think about your dream, but how do you actually like have a lifestyle and a business where every day it's like, this is the thing I dreamed of and here it is, I'm doing it. And that, now I can teach that because I had to figure it out. It took me a long time to figure it out. A lot of mistakes, millions of mistakes.
Well, you've really given us a lot of great wisdom, more wisdom than I was expecting. I'm so excited. And that thank you all for watching. And then Mark, how can everyone get a hold of you? Because it looks like you're a real popular guy here. How can they,
First of all, just thank you. So what I recommend is go to, veganlaunch.com is our website. And that talks about the Vegan Launch community. That's where people work together to help create more and more public investment products for the vegan and the healthy lifestyle investment market, the $30 trillion overall healthy lifestyle market, and the $3 trillion vegan market. So if you're in the community, what you're actually doing is, whether it's your own company or in any other way, you're helping create the leaders who can be responsible for more and more amounts of money being applied to solving the world's problems, which veganism solves. Veganism solves a hell of a lot of problems. Now, if you want to learn how we work as a company, so that page is all about the community. But at the very top, there's a big blue bar, and it says click here. And you click on that big blue bar, and you're going to go to our WeFunder investor page. And so there you can invest as little as $100. People from all over the world can invest, except for 3 provinces in Canada. Go figure. But the rest of Canada can even do it as well. And $100, that's the minimum, but it's so different than the way even vegan finance is being practiced, where the minimum investments are typically $10, $20, $30, even $50,000. Most people can't participate. So here, like a person, you could invest $100 and then share with your network saying, I just invest $100. Here's why. If you like what we're saying, the community, right? If there's 4 million vegans, I don't expect 4 million people to be in the community working on this problem. Our goal is 10,000 members in the community, making the investment products and solving these problems for the bigger $30 trillion sector. And the thing is, what we've seen on Wall Street, once something makes money, even the people that don't care will invest. It's about getting things rolling. So that's really what there is to do. If you want to go straight to WeFunder, it's wefunder.com/vegan launch. If you want to go to our YouTube channel, it's youtube.com/vegan launch. Pretty easy. All the links are on our homepage, veganlaunch.com. And plant-based telehealth. Exactly. Those guys need capital to scale. What we're looking at is hundreds and even thousands of business models that all need capital to be fully fulfilled. So, right, plant-based telehealth. I'm 100% for that. Any of those companies that are looking for capital, we want to help them succeed. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but the thing that is most needed in this whole field is leaders who want to start these businesses or who want to start investment funds. And the people who want to invest in those, and mentor them and help. There's so many ways that the community was already working. I could go on another hour. It's how cool it is.
Well, you'll have to come back as another time.
Oh, let's go another hour. Let's go another hour. No problem.
This is great. So then we'll post all the information, and then I'm lucky enough to found Mark on LinkedIn, and I love talking to you. You're gonna have to go answer the questions or whatever comments or what we didn't get to afterwards. So thank you so much for coming. You've really been. Is there a way
for me to directly engage? We can do this off camera.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, how can they get a hold of you? I mean, on LinkedIn, or you're on Facebook?
Yeah, I'm on on LinkedIn. There's Facebook, Twitter.
Okay.
I mean, we have email. There's an email link on the footer of our webpage. I'm pretty easy to get in touch with. You'd have trouble not finding me.
Well, if you can't get a hold of him, come to me and I'll get a hold of him for you. So don't worry.
Just go to the webpage and connect with me in whatever is your favorite channel of communication.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for this. This was the first live stream. So
Oh, really? Well, I appreciate it, and I really appreciate all the comments. I've been reading these, and it's really nice to be in company with so many people who care. And I look forward to meeting as many of you that want to meet.
Yeah, yes, do it, everybody. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. And then join us next week we're going to have another every week. And in this group, have a wonderful, powerful interview. I'm a vegan empowerment coach. So if you know anyone that needs help, I help with communication, what we've been talking about, how to communicate in a loving, respectful way to make a difference in the world. For the animals and our planet. So we're on the same team. I love it. So thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And Peter's not there. Go.
Oh, yeah, right. All right. Bye, y'all.